Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, good night, good everything. My name is Jason Weiss, and you are on the Ask Jason Weiss show. Um, love the show, love the platform. As many of you know who've listened in the past, I am an attorney. However, I am not here to give legal advice today, so nothing that I say or nothing that my guest says is legal advice, nor shall it be construed that way. We have not created an attorney-client relationship. Nothing that you ask or say to me is privileged, and do not rely upon anything that I say because it is not legal advice. So today, we're going to be talking about how to get your best life. And this is a gentleman who is one of the bright things that came out of COVID. I actually got to meet Dusty through the LinkedIn platform, and then we went ahead and we know each other, and we talk socially, and just a great guy. And he focuses on how to get your best life. And I don't think there's a specific answer where you could say, hey, Dusty, how do I get my best life? But based on individual circumstances, there are ways that you can get it. So one of the things that I could tell you is that Dusty, like myself, is a dad, and his number one priority is family, family, family. So I would guess, without putting words in Dusty's mouth, that part of his best life is centered around his family. So I am going to introduce Dusty right here, Dusty DeGroff, DeGroff, and the best way to find him would be look on LinkedIn because he's there. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Dusty DeGroff.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm super excited to be here today and be on your show and talk more about, again, finding and living your best life.
And Dusty said it on my show because when Dusty launched his own podcast, it's called the Ambitious Life Podcast. Pardon me, I just want to do that. When Dusty started his podcast, I had the honor and privilege of being on it, and it was awesome. It was just literally the two of us sitting there, and if we were drinking, it would be like we had beers with us. So you know, that's what it's all about. So Dusty, tell us a little bit about your Ambitious Life podcast and how to get your best life.
Well, they obviously go hand in hand, right? And so the podcast started with this idea that I actually got from my dad, which is what we call the 3 pillars, right? And that is mental fitness, physical fitness, and financial fitness. So those are the 3 things that really build, off of, or we can build our best life off of. And how do we do that? Well, as dads, right? That was the goal, was like, I got it from my dad. And I was like, hey, there are a lot of other dads out there that are focused on their work, focused on their families, and they're doing everything they can, but they're not focused on themselves. And so that's one of those things that for me, really, I had to go inside to make sure I could continue to give, right? And that is one of the biggest things that I promote, is you can't give from an empty cup. So again, that is one of the biggest things for living your best life, is starting with yourself. And you got to have the mental game, you got to have the physical game, and you also have to make sure that your finances are in order. And that's where I was like, you know what, since was struggling with this, let me reach out to other dads. And what's the best way to do that is through a podcast. And so that's how the Ambitious Life podcast was formed, was me interviewing other dads and figuring out how they are excelling in those areas. So it's been a lot of fun. I've met a lot of great dads from LinkedIn and locally on where I live.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was having some technical issues, so I think I'm back now. And one of the things that you and I have chatted about in the past is we have our monthly musts. So I don't know if you want me to dive into what I thought, my monthly must is, or you want to, take on what the monthly must and explain it.
Yeah. So, I was hoping you were going to bring this up, right? Because I
You
think that,
scripted it better, right?
right, exactly. And I think that it's this conversation of like, okay, what's motivating you to provide for your family? And what is, you've always said the monthly must. These are things that I have to make. And I think that the flip side of that too, people can make the decision of, well, why don't I trim that stuff down so that then my monthly must isn't as high as maybe someone else, right? And I think the overall theme that I got from our conversation and what I wanted to kind of reach back out to you about is like, has that changed since we talked? Or, what does your monthly must continue to grow, or what does that look like?
So my monthly must has shifted a little bit. And when I say shifted a little bit, it's because I basically sat down. I don't have it with me, but I keep a notebook with me, and I went through everything. And I personally went through some changes. I sold a house, so I got out, and now I'm renting, and I invested a little bit of the money from the sale of the house because the market down here is crazy. But I went ahead and I started looking at things, money that I was spending, and it was very weird. So I had the perfect example. I had a fax line and a phone line in my old house. And I was paying, I think, $80 a month for the phone and $20 a month for the fax. When was the last time I got a fax on my home fax? Who the heck knows? So I called up my phone carrier and I said, look, I want to drop that line. And just by doing that, they talked to me about other packages and all this and all that. And I wound up saving like $80 a month. So that was $80 in my pocket. When we moved from my old house to where I'm currently renting now, we got rid of the phone line completely. I'm saving $100 a month. That's $1,200 a year. That is, an extra dinner going out, or a month, or whatever it is. Because my son eats like crazy, and he's huge. But so it's an expensive thing to feed that child. But just figuring out what it is, what do we need? What do we want? A cut down on the cable package, dropped a couple of channels, saved $9-10 a month doing it. When I renewed Disney Plus, I dropped Hulu, saved $4.99 a month. So just little things. And I didn't miss a beat. So my monthly nut with expenses going up actually went down. And I've also looked at things like, space. I rented a lot of space for what I was paying in rent to rent office space, and where I was storing file cabinets. I got a storage unit for $240 a month. I'm paying quadruple that in rent for a spot. So I just saved $700 a month. It's great.
Right. And, I think that's audit is the word that comes into mind, right? And this is something that my wife and I do from the financial side of things at beginning of every year, right? Where we go through the list of, we had similar where last year or beginning of this year went through my cell phone bill and was like, well, what's this $40 charge? So I called them and they were like, oh, that's the insurance on the phone. And I was like, okay, well, what comes with that? And they're like, well, it gives you, the deductible is $200 if you break your screen. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm paying $40 a month to then have a deductible of $200. And I was like, yeah, just get rid of that, And so I think that's where, to your point of tracking all these things, and you can even then expand that to, what are you doing for yourself? What are you spending your time on? Right. And then also the fitness side of things is where you spending your time on the physical side, right? From workouts, from, and really I think the mental side of things for us dads is we don't ever spend enough time with just ourselves and looking internal, right? Through meditation, through journaling, through, hey, just sitting quietly and thinking about all the thoughts we have, right? So doing that audit on all of those pillars of our life is super important. And look, like, I'm not here to say, like, you brought up cable, right? This is something that my wife and I had been talking about for years, was cutting the cord and just streaming things. And we were like, well, but we can't ever, there's no perfect package to get sports. We love sports. And there really isn't a great way to do that that reduces the cost. And so, middle of, actually, again, beginning of this year, we just cut it and we stream it, and we get the local, and playoffs and stuff like that. And I don't really miss it. So I think sometimes we build this thing up in our head that we're going to miss X, and then we never actually get rid of it to see what happens because we're holding on to it. So sometimes it's just like leap and the shoot will appear, right? Just cut it off and see if you really do need it, and then you go from there.
Right. All right. And we're not saying, stop taking medication because, whatever, but you're talking about, streaming TVs or movie or, all of that kind of stuff. And there's no perfect answer. I think what's right for Dusty might not be right for my family, and what's right for my family might not be right for your family. The perfect thing is, like I like a nice tissue. So I'm going to buy Kleenex with aloe in it. Somebody else has no problem getting the Walmart, the Target, the Publix brand. Okay, to each their own. Who am I to say? Look, I wear long sleeve T-shirts every single day. That's my thing. Where they come from, Old Navy, the Gap, Vineyard Vines, Long Pole Life, it really doesn't matter. But that's how I like to dress. You like a collared shirt. Who am I to tell you that, how you're supposed to do it? So, but what's something that you touched on is, and I don't want to circle back to this, as dads, as husbands, we feel that it's our duty to provide for our family or to provide with our significant other for our family. And we often put everyone else first and put us last. And one of the things that you said that resonated with me was, I'm running and I'm working and I'm doing and all this and all that. And when we first started talking, I stopped working out. I hadn't been exercising. I hadn't been doing anything. Well, I just realized when we were talking, shoot, I haven't worked out in 2 months. I got to get back into it, So to just couple on to what you said, we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves and we have us time. How do you balance that by being a dad, doing your Ambitious Life podcast, doing all the stuff that you do, and also working in the financial sector, helping people plan for the future? How do you balance all of that? Is there a secret?
I wish I had the secret, right? No. So really, I think it's for me, it's
so
about
it, and neither one of us will worry about money ever again.
Exactly. It's that easy. No, and I think that, while I was listening to you, I was really thinking about, we have to run our own race, right? And sometimes we get so caught up in what everybody else is doing. And especially, like, I'm a self-help junkie, right? And I found that I was adding all these things, like people recommend all these different stuff that should help us, fill up our cup. And I was trying to do it all and it wasn't working. And so I'm actually doing the other side now. Is like, I'm just going to go down to the bare bones basic and see what helps me. And so I start with, I get up early, right? Like, that's one thing that I've done for 15 years, right? I'm up at 5 a.m. Nowadays, things have changed, right? I knew that would get your attention. Where instead of I was going to the gym years ago, we're now at the gyms in the basement, right? And I get up and I do some kind of workout, some kind of physical activity. Now that's changed this year, right? Before I was doing, heavy lifting and everything like that, and I hurt my back And I've actually been dealing with that for years, but that's where I've really started to change what I'm doing. So I've added yoga in, I've added a lot of mobility work. I'm doing a lot of spinning, right? And then I still do some resistance training, but not as much, but it starts in the morning, right? And so my use, let's say during the pandemic, right? A year ago, it was, I'd wake up, I'd meditate, I'd journal, I'd work out, and then I'd kind of start my morning routine with the kids and everything like that. Where now I actually save the meditation. I move that later in the day, right? When I'm starting to get tired after making phone calls and having appointments and everything like that, I really start to lose my steam. So, and then I find myself, whenever I find myself kind of clicking around the screen, not really doing anything, just being busy, I stop, close my eyes, and I meditate. I journal right before bed now, right? Or like it's like one of the last few things I do before bed. So I've kind of moved these things throughout, right? And so that's where it's like minimum effective dose, right? I think I said that when we on my podcast, right? That it's like, sure, I would love to be in the gym 2 hours a day. Sure, I would love to meditate for an hour every single day, right? But I don't have the time for that. But do I get the benefit of a 10-minute meditation? Absolutely. Do I get the benefit of a 35, 45-minute workout? Absolutely. So that's where we were kind of talking about like what fits in your schedule. Well, I plan me time, what works for me. I get up early. I understand that doesn't work for everybody. Maybe it's, you work out at night. I can't work out at night, right? I've tried it. I don't like it. I do it in the morning. So that's my recommendation is like, try these things, implement them, and then pare it down and go from there.
You did mention meditation. How did you get into meditation? Did you read something? Did you do something online? Have you always been doing it? Like if I said, meditation sounds awesome, I want to do it, but I don't know where to start.
Yep.
What would you tell someone like me?
I think that if you have some kind of watch that tells you to breathe for a minute, that's probably the best place to start, right?
I don't.
I know you don't, right? That's why I said if you do. So how it started for me was honestly listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast back in 2014. And that's really where my kind of self-improvement journey started, right? I was already working out, everything like that, but that's really where I was like, okay. And Tim really explained this like it's a warm bath for your soul, right? And it's this idea of, or what I would equate like to go fast, I need to go slow. And when I slow down and then know exactly what I need to do, then I can move fast. And so I found there's apps out there, right? That you can just do a program and it's 10 minutes and it's guided. That's what I do. And I think the number one thing with meditation is people try it once and their minds go like crazy. And they were like, I'm terrible at this, forget it. And what most people don't talk about is like, that's how everybody is. But the moments between the thoughts get longer and longer the more you meditate. And really where I've found with meditation, the most benefit is with my kids, right? I got young kids, they're 5 and 8, right? And they have their moments. And instead of reacting to their moments, I pause. Someone cuts you off on the way to work, I pause, right? That's where I think that the meditation actually benefits more than in the moment, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think what I got from it is two things. Number one is commit to meditating for a certain period of time, not just one day. Commit to 7 days, 8 days, 10 days, a week, a month, whatever it is. And the other one is, and I'm going to go to Friends and Joey Tribbiani. He had this line when he couldn't remember something, he would do smell the fart acting. And that was his pause. And I joke with that with my kids because they tell me I have, I act like a 12-year-old. So, a fart joke to me is the funniest thing. But it works. It truly does. When someone gets to me or something comes up or something comes in, I close my email or I close my laptop or I just go for a quick walk or I put my earbuds in and big deep breath, big out, big deep, big out. And believe it or not, it works. And so if that's meditation, then I meditate every day, multiple times a day. So, and good. Now I can say I meditate. So it's awesome. So with that being said, we're going to break real quick for a commercial. And when we come back, I want to talk to you about two things that you touched on, Dusty. So I'm gonna pitch you the softball so you can think over the next minute or two. You talked about journaling. I want to talk a little bit more about that. And you talked about me time, and I want to talk about that. So we're going to run into a commercial from some of the great sponsors and people that help support this. And then we'll be back talking about journaling and me time. Jason Weiss, Dusty DeGroff. We'll be right back.
When parents get divorced and become involved in the family court system, there are no winners. Everybody loses, especially the children. I know, because my custody battle lasted years, was completely unnecessary, and financially devastating. That experience inspired SplitSmart. SplitSmart is designed to empower both parents by giving them the structure they need to stay on course for a more peaceful and respectful co-parenting future. For less than amicable couples, our unique line item negotiation approach helps soften sometimes emotional stances into child-centered agreements that both parents can live with. Do you want your children to thrive and grow up with healthy, loving relationships with both parents? How much easier would it be if you could bypass the conflict and create a clear, supportive, and comprehensive co-parenting plan and schedule that's tailored specifically for your family? Can you imagine what it would be like if there were no arguments about money or child support? If any of this appeals to you, if you want to minimize the expense and drama of divorce, do yourself and your children a big favor and use SplitSmart to craft your co-parenting and support plans. And as an added benefit, even if you've done your best and still can't get all the way there, SplitSmart will have your information well organized, so a skilled mediator or family lawyer can efficiently help your family cross the finish line. Visit splitsmart.com today to get started on creating a brighter and more joyous tomorrow for you and your kids.
And we are back. Jason Weiss, Ask Jason Weiss, Dusty DeGroff. Proud to call him my friend, and he is telling us how to get your best life. So, Dusty, I gave you. This is not scripted, of course. But I gave you, two topics that we're going to talk about: the journal and the me time. And these are two things that are very important to me. And we might mix them together, or they might be individual. But so you mentioned, you have a work life, you have a family life, you have time for meditation, time for working out, all of this. And one of the things that I find worked for me was I wasn't having Jason time, meaning I wasn't working out, I wasn't reading a book that I want to read. I mean, all these books behind me, I haven't read half of them. And I tried to figure it out. And my wife and one of my friends pointed it out to me. And they're like, look, you have certain clients that you'll only speak to them when they have an appointment, when they have a scheduled time. You send a Zoom, you send a link. You have certain clients that they call and you just pick up the phone. You got to treat all of your clients the same. Have everybody, hey, I can't talk right now, but I have an opening in half an hour. And book it and follow your calendar. So one of the things that I did, and I found this works for me, is I book time for myself. I treat myself just like I'm a client. So I know that Tuesdays from 9:15 to 10:15 and Thursdays, I'm working out. And that's it. That's my time period. I don't take phone calls. I don't check messages. I don't do, just like when I would be on with a client. What works for you getting your me time? Because that works for me, but what works for you?
So time blocking, right, is 100% what works for me. And what's interesting about this conversation, right, is the workouts, the meditation. That's just little pockets of me time, right? And I was in the same place, kind of thinking of like, okay, we're wrapping up 2021. What does 2022 look like? I had this moment of reflection where I wasn't getting enough me time, right? And again, if I want to be my best self so I can give to everybody else, I need a little bit more time. And so what I did was scheduled, and we're not doing it yet because technically this would be conflicting with that. But Thursday mornings, every single week, I have a block that's what I call recreation time. And I'm going to do one of four things. And my branch office administrator knows that I am unavailable, right? Because I'm going to be either skiing, hiking, fishing, or, we live in Colorado, so we're getting into the winters, right? We're not like Florida, right, where we could golf all year round. Even though some days like that, we joke that that's the Colorado triathlon, right? Go for a bike ride, ski, and golf all the same day. It is possible sometimes of the year. So I'm going to spend time doing one of those four things every single Thursday. It's in my business plan, my future letter, right, for 2022, which is like, I'm going to try to do that every week for 52 weeks. So that would be the answer there, is like, I did just like you got to schedule it in, because if I don't do those, if it's not scheduled, I'll come up with something else to do.
I like it. Now, would you schedule that in the journal? Is that something that when you talked about journaling, or is that something that is, just you're going to block it on your Outlook calendar?
Yeah. So the me time, that recreation time, is blocked on my calendar. And then the journaling is something separate.
So tell me a little bit about what you consider journaling, because I have a question based on that.
Yeah. So honestly, another thing that I've been reflecting on and really thinking about what is the most effective, right? So in the middle of the pandemic, July of 2020, the journal was 3 to 4 pages of just like all my negative thoughts, right? All the limiting beliefs, all that, just throw that out there, right? And I was really being my biggest critic, not my biggest cheerleader. And so I've moved away from that kind of journaling, where now I've actually created, before I go to bed, it's more of a reflection on the day, right? And so I have just a prompt I use just a note app, and I created a template. And one of the things, first question is, did I move through today with energy? Right. And that was just like, yes, I did. No, I didn't. Right. Did I finish today, feeling proud and accomplished? Yes or no. Right. And then I have some other affirmations, right, that I just repeat to myself, because prior to this year, I thought affirmations were a bunch of BS. I know there's some people that may be watching this that we both know that are full on into affirmations, and I'm on their side now. Like, I 100% believe in them. So I have some affirmations, and then I ask my 3 questions, which is, what am I going to focus on tomorrow? What am I going to let go of tomorrow? And then my biggest one, which is, what am I grateful for? So I just have prompts. So that's what journaling looks like these days.
I love the grateful one, and it puts things into perspective. I mean, I was having a quasi rough day on Tuesday, and I spoke to a colleague, and when he told me what he was going through, I literally said on the phone, I'm like, wow, I thought I was going through a rough patch. You're really going through a rough patch. And it made me forget about my rough patch for the day and try to help him. I love the fact that your journaling is done at night. It clears your mind. So I do something a little bit different and maybe it is journaling or maybe it's not. I have my monthly musts, and I also call it my daily dumps. I could be a 12-year-old and talk about daily dumps, but I won't. But to me, it's my dump list, so that I can go to bed with a clean mind instead of racing and waking up and, oh my God, did I meet this deadline, or did I file this, or did I get this in on time, or all of this. I write it down. I look at my Outlook calendar. I make sure everything that was on there is done. And then I write down the things that I have to do. It could be call a friend. It could be get a pleading out the door. It could be, renew an insurance policy, whatever it is. And I write it down in a book. So, and I find myself in the morning not going crazy. The only thing I'm thinking about in the morning is, okay, let me go check my list from last night. And I go and I check. And that gets me situated for the next day. And then what I do is on a separate pad, I have what I have to do today. And those are called my absolute yeses. And it could be whatever works for me. And it could be 4, it could be 5, it could be 2. An absolute yes for today was being on time for this show. An absolute yes for today is I need to take my wife and my daughter to the airport. An absolute yes for me today is to get an employment document done. These are absolute yeses. It could be sit down and watch Thursday night football. It's up to you. Whatever works for you. And the whole point behind what I'm saying here is that there's no right or wrong, but you got to do what works. And that is going to get you to what you define as your best life. I have no desire to go fishing or biking. Oh, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I no desire, but I would love to go walking every single day. And I'm going to. I'm going to build that into my time period.
And, I think that that's one of those things that kind of the overall theme for this whole conversation is everybody has all these great ideas, but you really need to evaluate what works for you. Right. And I think that that's where we get so caught up in what, the term journaling is. Right. And we're trying to be perfect journalers. Who freaking cares?
No.
Right. Whatever works for you to get you closer to your goal. Right. So whatever that goal is, if it's, hey, I want to sleep better. Hey, I want to be more productive. Right. Like when you're talking about your lists and things like that, for me, the journaling is that mental side of things, right? Where I just want to kind of make sure it's on that paper. I have also kind of productivity trackers, right? That I have, goals throughout my day on, hey, I need to talk to at least, this is on top of my appointments, right? I want to talk to at least 5 clients. I want to talk to at least 15 prospects, and I want to talk to at least 5 networking partners. And so that's stuff that I track every day. And I noticed that, a lot of times in business, we get caught up in today and what are we doing today? And what we can get lost in is really we're going to feel those actions, not tomorrow, but 90 days from now. Right. And especially when you're building business or building your business, yes, you might have a bad day, but it's really worthwhile to just keep moving forward because you just still got to show up. Right. And that goes back to something, I've really leaned into gratitude. Right. And you were talking about like someone always has it worse. Right. And I think that for me, I found myself really in that moment, and I don't know where I picked this up, but when my kids are bouncing off the walls and, they're kind of getting in that space of like annoying us a little bit. Right. I just say, hey, I'm grateful for this, right? And I found that any kind of anxiety or frustration is gone. And that's the same thing sitting in traffic, right? Like when a red light, you can't, how we've all been there, right? Where you see a red light, it turns green, and then it turns red before you get to it. And it happens multiple times. I always just go, hey, I'm grateful for this. Let me just focus in on, something is putting this here in front of me for a reason, and let me be grateful for it. And it's the pathway from scarcity to abundance. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And it's kind of like turning that frown upside down, looking at the situation and saying, it could have been worse, or it could have been, better, or it could have been, whatever it is, Look, sitting in that traffic and you have your kid in the car next to you, look at it, hey, I got to spend an extra 5 minutes with my kid.
Right.
When my kids still at an age where they actually, like me and enjoy my company and aren't sitting on the phone and doing this. I mean, there's always that. I mean, but we all get caught up in our situations, and we all become Debbie Downers, and we all become, oh my God, this is happening to me. Why me? And maybe taking that deep breath and that reflecting, it's, and that is just a way to help us get your best life. And again, people always have it worse, and people always have it better. And I took one of these strength-based tests to see my personality, and my number one trait is competition. But I don't compete with, Mary and Steve and Joe and David. I compete with me. And that's huge. And I need to remember that, some people have it better than me, and some people have it worse than me, and some people have it different than me. And I only have to compare to me. That's it. I am my own cheerleader and worst enemy all rolled into one.
So true. In a book that I read at the beginning of this year, as you know, I do, well, I'll say I consume a lot of books, right? So I read fiction before bed, and then throughout the day, I'm listening to nonfiction books. And one of the ones, my favorite ones this year, is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And in that, he talks about, and he's been on all sorts of podcasts, and he talks about this idea that his hero is the best version of himself 10 years from now. And that's who he's trying to chase, right? To your point about being competitive, I'm not competitive with everybody else. I'm competitive with my best self. And if I do these things today, I will be able to get to that point, and always doing more, right? Doing better for me. And I know if I do that, then everybody else it'll serve everybody else as well. And that's one thing that I was thinking about too, that I've been telling people, especially any man, any father that I can express this to, is being selfish first is a great way to be selfless, right? And to give back, right? So we have to, we're talking about time blocking. That is being selfish for us, right? And I'm not saying that you should take, 30 days out of the month and only focus on you, but there are times for you to be selfish, and that will then help you be a better father, husband, coworker, whatever it might be.
I like it. So I usually get towards the end of this show and I ask, just a fun question. And you may have already answered part of the question, but you said you listen to, you do both fiction and nonfiction. A nonfiction and a fiction you're currently reading or listening to, and your favorite nonfiction and fiction. Of course, they don't have to be the same. Just what you're currently listening to and reading, and what are your favorite two?
Okay, so what I'm currently listening to is Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday. It's his new book out there, and I'm currently reading the newest Jack Reacher book. I've read them all. I actually read the last year's before I buy the next year's, right? So I double up on that. That's just me being kind of a nut when it comes to what I'm, I bought this, I should reread it. And then I don't know if I can come up with a favorite from
my father does that with movies. Anytime something is coming out, he goes back and watches everything up to that. Like I don't remember if the new Top Gun came out or not, but he's like, I got to go watch the old one. And when John Wick 3 came out, he's like, I got to go watch 1 and 2 again. So that my dad does that. I mean, yeah. That's great. So favorite fiction, favorite nonfiction.
Favorite fiction, because this one just jumps in my head, is Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. That one I've read multiple times throughout my life. And then my favorite nonfiction, I mean, I think really I'd reread it a third time would be Green Lights, or listen to it, right? So that's what I would say. Like Matthew McConaughey reads his own book, So it's, if you like Matthew McConaughey and his attitude about life, that book is unbelievable. And so that would probably be my most recent one, but I'm on this, I think I've read or listened to 14 plus nonfiction books this year, and each one of them has been amazing, but I think that would be the one I'd go back to.
So at the end of the book, does he plug you to go buy a Lincoln because he's doing all those commercials now?
He does not do that. I think that's just it, part of the deal, though, right?
Yeah. Listen to my book and get $500 off the new Navigator. Oh, great! I'd be, listening. That's great. I think that was it. I had something else, but it escapes me. I was talking to someone this morning. Ever since I had COVID a year plus ago, things just disappear from my mind, which I guess that's a good thing. If I'm stressing about something and it disappears, that'll be great. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the Green Lights book. Dusty is very easy to find on LinkedIn. It's Dusty DeGroff, DeGroff. Find him on LinkedIn. Follow him. He puts out some great content. He also has his Ambitious Life podcast. Hopefully we'll have him on the Going Solo network more and more, doing great things here, getting him more reach. And at the same time, he's a great person to follow on how to get your best life. And, you can listen to Dusty, talk about all different things. And he is in the financial arena. And if you have questions about anything he talked about, reach out to him on LinkedIn. So Dusty, as always, such a pleasure. Stay warm out there. Be good. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody, because this is my last show before Thanksgiving, and I will not be putting out a show on Thanksgiving. Even turkeys like myself deserve a break.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it. And anytime that we can chat, man, I really enjoy it.
Me too. And Cece, thank you for doing this for us. We always say thank you. Cece is the best. She's behind the scenes. She keeps us on task. She keeps us in line, and she just produces a phenomenal show. So, Cece, thank you for all you do, and thank you for being you.